Hey guys. So we're gonna try something. I'm gonna try something different because, you know, it's what I do. We're just trying stuff, you know. Hold on, I gotta get my little keyboard in place. So yeah, Smackdown just finished a little bit ago. For us East Coasters, and I'm gonna put my headphones on because I like hearing it. Because when I can hear myself, I know how loud I am. And I can make sure that the volume is all good. Let me just make sure. So look at that. Oh, look how beautiful it sounds. My dulcet tones. I love it. I love it, guys. I love it. Welcome. So yeah, I was gonna do just a quick recap of. I'm gonna talk about what I saw on SmackDown, and then I'm gonna talk about go over what my guesses are for tomorrow and what tomorrow's probably gonna look like. And let me see. Let's see if we can get this camera. My camera is a little bit sideways for some reason. Let's see if I can get it zeroed out for you. Someone's joined me. Welcome over in Twitch. Feel free if you have questions or you want to talk about anything. Feel free to chime in. Put my head right in the middle. I should do it. I should be in the center. Let me see. See if it worked. Hey, I think I'm in the middle. Cool. Welcome. My name is Joshua Hale Fialkov. I am a TV writer and comic book writer and producer. Award-nominated New York Times best-selling author of all kinds of stuff. And I love wrestling. I watch way too much of it, and I write and talk about it. And make videos about it. And I'm going to go over what happened on SmackDown tonight. And then there'll be a little video that comes out the other end. And yeah, so let's get into it. SmackDown, I would say overall, it was a good show. It was not... like, I felt like Monday Night Raw felt a little flat to me this week. It didn't feel like a great show. This actually felt like a pretty jam-packed good time. There was a couple filler matches, which you know, like I'm actually looking back and like looking at the card now, and there wasn't actually like, because there weren't that many matches. The fact that there were 2 filler matches, maybe 3 filler matches, actually does feel like quite a lot. There was only 1, 2, 3, 4 matches total. So like, the fact that of those 4 matches, 3 of them were filler matches is weird. But yeah, so let's get into it. So the show started with a really fantastic segment tonight, which was everybody, all the men from the men's ladder, Money in the Bank ladder match coming out, and all of them cutting promos on each other. The highlight, of course, was Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre was just a delight, as always. And I really enjoyed, there was a great... they did a punch-off between LA Knight and Jey Uso, where they were each taking shots at Drew, and they were getting the audience to shout yeet and yeah as each of them took a shot, which was just a cute, really, really cute little bit. So yeah, like that was a fun, like it was a fun segment. You know, the thing that I came out of it thinking, and people in my chat were talking about this as we were live streaming, you know, the thing that I find sort of most fascinating about the Money in the Bank, about this Money in the Bank ladder match, is that I really do not have an idea about who's going to win. And I don't know if anybody in chat has any thoughts, please feel free to chime in. But like, generally speaking, I have a better sense of who's going to win and who's going to lose this stuff. And I just really came out of it sort of with my, you know, scratching my head because I really don't know. There's certainly ways that it could go, and certainly things that I would do to get there. And I would, you know, if I were to choose who to give it to, I would probably go to Andrade or Chad Gable. Just judging from the segment tonight, I would assume it's not going to Andrade because they really minimized him and they really sort of took the piss out of him. But Chad Gable remains a strong possibility. I think like the segment sort of leaned towards it being Drew McIntyre, but the chances of it actually being Drew McIntyre, considering he doesn't need it, considering he's in a feud that really doesn't need it because he's feuding with CM Punk right now, and look, like, let's just have him and Punk feuding without using a belt, which just seems like the better storyline anyways. So yeah, but yeah, it was a great segment. Really, I think possibly the second best thing of the night. From there, we went into what was like not a bad match, but it was picking up a leftover match from last week, which was the Street Profits fighting Pretty Deadly. And like, don't get me wrong, I love the Street Profits to death. I think I like the Street Profits. I love Pretty Deadly to death. I think Pretty Deadly are hysterically funny. I think they're incredibly talented. I think like they're just really, really great at what they do. Um, but on a show that's a go home show, right? It's the show right before we're going into a PLE. Um, we should really be focused on the PLE. We should really be focused on moving those stories forward. And I would have rather had a match that was actually focused on something that was happening tomorrow, or at least a match that had consequences. And this was really just a match with no consequences and no real stakes or anything. And I feel bad saying that because again, I'm really happy to see Pretty Deadly actually doing something, but you know give me stakes beyond just we're trying to win. In that same note, it was followed up by a Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair versus Candice LeRae Indy Hartwell match. And again, like, it was a fine match. It wasn't great, but it was fine. And I suppose, like, it was a chance for Jade and Bianca to reestablish that they're going after the women's tag titles. I would have cut a promo, I guess, or have Fire and Dawn come out, like, just do something to give it real, like, fleshy, grounded, purposeful stakes, right? That's all. I want a little bit more to make me feel like I'm watching this for a reason. Like I'm not just watching it just to have time on my TV filled, which is sort of what it felt like to me. It was especially after that three-way match at Clash at the Castle, where I think Jade Cargill missed a bunch of spots and just didn't look great. She was much better in this, and I think like you could tell like she was sort of singing for her supper. Yeah, so she was good. Then there was a really good segment with Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens that got just a huge reaction out of the audience, especially for Kevin Owens because he's Canadian. He is Canadian. And when he was there, he cut this blistering promo. Blistering might be the wrong word. He cut this really emotional promo about his mother is sick and he spent the week taking care of her, like in the hospital with his dad and her, and how much it really how much he probably he wanted to be with her, but knew that he had to be here, and how important it was to be wrestling, and like just a really, I'm not doing it justice whatsoever, but just a really beautiful, really nice piece of performance from him that just shows like Kevin Owens doesn't have polish, but what he lacks in polish he makes up for in so much heart. And it's really just, he's so beautiful at what he does, and like we're so lucky to have him. And I love, one of my favorite things to do when I have spare time is to go and watch like old Ring of Honor Kevin Steen matches and Kevin Steen promos, because even before he had the added training and added time that he's gotten in the WWE, like the guy has just always been so goddamn talented. Him and Sami Zayn together have just always been so gifted at doing this, and they're such a great double act to watch. That was followed up by Bayley fighting Piper Niven, which I will say, like, again, this is sort of like weird outlier match, but what they did, and this is where I'm talking about how if you're gonna have these stories, you want to actually ground them and make sure that they have stakes that tie in to what's happening tomorrow. What they did is they had all of the competitors for the ladder match tomorrow, for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, one by one, all sort of like come out and watch until eventually they all got involved. And then you had a big schmoz at the end until eventually Bailey beat Piper in the middle of the ring. This one I felt was a little clearer, is a little bit clearer about who's probably going to win. If you were to put a gun to my head, I would guess that Tiffany Stratton is going to come out of it with the briefcase. Tiffany has the most to gain, right? And I'll talk about this. I think after I get through the show, I'll go back and talk about the card for tomorrow for Money in the Bank. But I feel like Tiffany she gets the biggest pop. She has the most to gain from getting the briefcase. But man, do I wish Chelsea Green would win it. And like I said, we'll come back to that in just a couple minutes. Then Nia Jax came out at the end of that segment and attacked Bailey, and Michin showed up and attacked Nia Jax, and it was like a schmoz after a schmoz. So there's a lot of schmozzing going on. We had a lot of schmoz, which is a lot. But again, it felt like we're moving story forward, so I don't mind it so much. And then we got our main event, and our main event was DIY fighting A-Town Down Under, yeah, for the WWE Tag Team titles. And, they did something really interesting. So throughout the course of the night, they really hyped up, number one, how important the tag team titles are, and number two, that this is where DIY won their NXT titles, the same arena, however many years ago it was. So like they spent so much energy building up how important this place was to the two of them, that like the match was sort of a foregone conclusion before it ever started. That being said, it was still a pretty incredible match. All four guys looked great. I'm really happy for Gargano and Ciampa. I feel like they haven't necessarily been used great since they've both come back. But I think they both have a ton of potential. I think, they're really, really talented. I think to some degree they're a little limited by the fact that they already did this story to some degree already in NXT. But, I have faith in the creative, committee to come up with more to do with them, and to just let the fact that these guys are incredibly talented, and need to shine, and to just let them shine. And then the episode ended with, I've got to say, I was not just pleasantly surprised, I was downright impressed. Solo Sikoa cut a film vignette. So it was a promo, but it was a film vignette promo about how Roman is a screw up, and how he's coming for Cody Rhodes tomorrow at the PLE, and it was really good. And I think they've realized a couple of things that they've done wrong with Solo. Number one is like the guy's just not had the experience talking that everybody else involved has had, right? Like he just hasn't talked. And so expecting him to be able to cut promos the way that Roman cuts promos, or to cut promos against Randy and Kevin Owens and ultimately Cody Rhodes, is insane. Like that is an insane task to put on absolutely anybody. So I think it's actually pretty smart to do this as a filmed vignette. And what he proved in this film vignette is the guy can do it, because it was pretty damn good. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to call it chilling, but it was pretty close. So yeah, I would say like this is something pretty special. It was a pretty special little bit, and like it really cements. If you guys watched, I talked about in the video I made about the WrestleMania behind the curtain. I talked about how the story that they're working towards is not just a civil war, but it's going to be a civil war with between The Rock and Roman Reigns, with The Rock pulling the strings behind Solo Sikoa, and how the reason why that story is going to work is that story has emotional stakes. What this promo was it was starting to set those emotional stakes, so that when The Rock comes back with Roman to face Roman, all that stuff is going to make a little more sense, because there's now going to be track that's laid out for it. So I think that's pretty terrific. I think that's really, really smart, and I think we got good stuff to come. And that was our SmackDown for tonight. So let's move on to our Money in the Bank for tomorrow. I'm using over on CBS Sports. They have the card laid out, so I'm gonna use their rundown. So they have, for the opening match, Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental title. This is going to be an interesting match. I think Braun Breaker, I know people are mixed on Braun Breaker because, he, I feel like people have mixed expectations for him because he's gotten such a huge push. He got such a huge push in NXT. And it's a question of, like, is he capable of actually bringing it? And I think putting him in a match with Sami Zayn is pretty smart, because number one, Sami can make anybody look good. He really can. He's so gifted in the ring. And he's gifted not just at moves, but though he is, like, he moves beautifully. What he's really gifted at is he's gifted at telling stories. And he tells stories with such fluidity and such compassion that I think when you put him in the ring with a guy like Braun Breaker, I think you're going to get something really, really special out of him. So I think it's going to be possibly Braun's best match ever. Like, I really do think we're going to get, sort of an epic performance out of him. I would guess, to be honest, it might be a little early to do it, but I would put the title on Braun. I feel like Sami, he's been a good champion, but it's also probably time for that title to change hands, especially because I don't know that anything else of, like, there's not going to be a title change anywhere else on this card. There's only one other title match, and I can't imagine the title's going to change hands in that one. So, like, it feels like you might want to do it just to have the title change, and to put a fresh dominating champion in feels like a good move. So my bet on that is Braun Breaker. Next up is the Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton versus the Bloodline. I'm assuming that it's, like, they haven't said which 3 of the 4 Bloodline guys it's going to be. I'm hoping that it's Jacob Fatu, that they actually use Jacob Fatu in the match, because he is just amazing. And, like, I've watched enough New Japan that I've seen a lot of Tama Tonga and Tongaloa, and so I could use seeing more Jacob Fatu in my life. So I hope it's some combination that involves Jacob Fatu. Like, there's even a world where, after having Solo cut that promo about wanting to face Cody, like, you have him then get there and be like, you 3 go take care of them and just not do it, which I think would be pretty delightful, actually. Like, that would be a pretty funny like, that's leadership, like, that's his version of leadership, which, by the way, is a very Roman Reigns form of leadership. So that'd be good. My guess is that the Bloodline is going to go over them because they have to. They have, like, the Bloodline needs the win. The Bloodline needs the legitimacy that they're going to get. There's no negative consequence. Like, nobody's going to look at Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton and be like, ugh, you guys suck. Whereas the Bloodline right now needs legitimacy more than anything in the world. So my guess, my money says that we're going to see the Bloodline go over the 3 of them, just because you need it. Next up, the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. It's Io Sky versus Chelsea Green versus Lyra Valkyria, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, and Zoe Stark. My money, like I said before, is on Tiffany Stratton. I think just she's, like, should have a rocket strapped to her back, but at the same time doesn't super have a story right now. She's sort of involved with Um, with Nia Jax, like she's sort of involved in that Nia Jax story, but just enough, right? Like not a huge amount. So I think you could give her the Money in the Bank, and it legitimizes her. It rewards her for having just an amazing year and just having such like great breakout since she's come over to the main roster. And she's gonna use it really well. Like she's gonna be able to use it for dramatic purposes. I think in a really sophisticated way. Um, that being said, if I were booking this and I had my druthers, I would give it to Chelsea Green faster than you could even imagine, because Chelsea Green would be goddamn hysterical. Like the fact that she is a coward, the fact that like she is the perfect heel. Like she is such a great heel, and giving it to her and having her be too chicken shit to use it and just like having poor judgment, everything about her screams that she would be amazing at it. And she would have it and she would never use it. Like there's a world where you give it to Chelsea Green and she just keeps that briefcase forever, and she just walks around, and she like the record that she gets is being the longest ever holder of a Money in the Bank briefcase until like literally we go past a year, and next year's holder also, there's two briefcases floating around, and then the year after that and the year after that, and it just becomes her gimmick is that she's the one walking around with the briefcase, and one day she's going to use that briefcase. That's what I would do, but that's why I don't work there, I suppose. Next up, the men's Money in the Bank ladder match: Jey Uso, Carmelo Hayes, Andrade, Chad Gable, LA Knight, and Drew McIntyre. I really don't know. I got to be honest. I have kind of mixed feelings about this because I don't feel strongly about anybody winning this. Like I said, my initial gut is probably Chad Gable. Chad is involved with this Wyatt Six stuff, but is he? Like, I don't quite know what that is in terms of like practical application. But almost sort of like I was saying with Chelsea Green, you give it to Chad and then he gets the yips, right? He's sort of like constantly like, I'm ready to do this, I can do it, and then never quite can pull the trigger, right? He's constantly overestimating himself right up into the last minute when he doesn't have the confidence to do it. So you let the Wyatt Six stuff sort of have had like like his like spooked his confidence, and he just can't do it. The other reason why I say him is like I don't quite know what anybody else gets out of it. LA Knight maybe could use it, but it doesn't feel like right for his character because the Money in the Bank briefcase is so nefarious and it's sort of like so underhanded, and like he is a dude who by character nature just comes right at you. Jey Uso, on the other hand, is somebody who doesn't need it, right? Like he's a guy who just walks up to people and says, I want a world title shot, and they apparently hand it to him, because how many world title shots has that guy had, and how many intercontinental title shots has he had? So like it doesn't feel like it adds any value to him. Carmelo Hayes, he feels green to me. Like, it doesn't feel like he's ready for it. And then Andrade, I mean, practically speaking, Andrade has the most to gain from having it because he doesn't have a story right now. He doesn't have a feud right now. Like, it would give him something to do, and it would immediately put him into the title scene, which is one of the benefits of the suitcase, of the Money in the Bank briefcase. Sorry, but. That being said, like it just doesn't feel right to me. Like it doesn't feel like something that you would do because he's not sort of established enough, and there's not enough going on with him to make it feel meaningful to me. And then Drew McIntyre, like CM Punk's gonna show up and screw him. At least he should, and that's just how this story is going. And then on top of that, I don't want Drew to have a title. I want Drew involved with CM Punk. And if you keep putting a title around Drew or Drew around a title, one of two things is going to happen. CM Punk is going to have to keep putting the kibosh on it, which is going to get old soon. Like this is kind of pushing it already. But then beyond that, I don't want them fighting over a title. I want them fighting over their egos, because that's a fight that neither one can win. So yeah. So ultimately, I'm gonna say I'm leaning towards Chad Gable, but maybe Andrade. But maybe they'll give it to LA Knight because LA Knight also really needs a push. And then finally, the World Heavyweight Championship, Damian Priest versus Seth Rollins. Yeah, I mean, this just seems like Damian Priest, right? Like, I can't imagine that they're going to give it back to Seth Rollins. Feels like a match that they're using to establish Damian Priest. They're constantly battling the feeling of illegitimacy, which is the consequence of the Money in the Bank ladder match winner, right? Because of the Money in the Bank briefcase, there's always this feeling of illegitimacy. And I think Damian got a lot of benefit out of that match with Drew McIntyre at Clash of the Castle, but also there's an asterisk on it because of CM Punk. Again, you need to really establish Damian, and I think they're really devoted to establishing Damian as as a top of the card main eventer, and I don't think he's there yet. So I think this is their way of doing that by putting him face to face with one of their top guys, one of the top guys, not just one of the top guys. It's going to help establish Damian is good enough, dadgummit. And I think that's really what the point of the match is to really just cement Damian where he is. I also think he is gonna quit the Judgment Day, or he's gonna leave the Judgment Day, but he needs to do it of his own volition. Having him forced into quitting the Judgment Day is just not good storytelling. He needs to quit because he's doing it of his own free will, or because they turn on him. Either one is fine. But if he can't quit because he's being made to. And Seth Rollins shouldn't be challenging for that title anymore. I've talked before about how what Seth Rollins should be doing is fighting Cody, because he is Cody's Joker. He is Cody's equal and opposite in every way. And they should be fighting each other. So those are my predictions. Those are my predictions for Money in the Bank tomorrow. That was my rundown for SmackDown for tonight. I will be back. I am going to live stream all of Money in the Bank tomorrow. I might live stream with the NXT pay-per-view on Sunday, but maybe not, because it's been a long week, guys. It's been a very, very long week. If you have enjoyed this, please subscribe. You can click, there's a button that's here or there, or I don't know where, somewhere. Click the button to subscribe. I'm also on Instagram at Wrestling with Story. I'm on Twitch if you're watching me on YouTube. If you're watching me on Twitch, I'm on YouTube. Both of those are Wrestling with Story. I live stream Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. And sometimes Collision, and I try to do all the PLEs and pay-per-views, and we're building this thing. My TikTok got taken down because I posted commentary on AEW, which is a whole other thing that I might make a video about because it's horrifying. But I have a new TikTok up, which is under my name, which is Josh Fialkov. Which is really hard to spell, but you can follow me there if you want to. Otherwise, you can find me at any of those places at Wrestling with Story. And thanks for watching, guys. This has been rambling. I have no idea if anybody will ever watch this, but I hope you do. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you tomorrow for Money in the Bank. Thanks.